In this section, we'll try and answer your questions about what it's like to go to Download Festival, things that we recommend and things to avoid. This time, the New Village. The Village is where we all go for food, fun, shopping and moshing before the band start in the main arena. But from 2022, it's very different to how it's been before. So here's our guide to the New Village. So we have already spoken extensively about the Village, but this is our official guide. Unofficial guide. Because we're not official, not at all. We're not endorsed by anybody in charge, although we do operate with their permission, interestingly. First of all, we're going to talk about the Tarmac Lake. So the Village is in a completely different place to where it was. In fact, I don't think I could find where the Village used to be now. It's do you think the placement of the Village is good?
Oh, I love it. I honestly believe this is the best placement they've had for the Village since I started going in 2015.
Really? Do you prefer it more than on the grass?
I do. Purely for weather conditions. There was no trouncing through mud. Yeah, obviously it was dry this year, luckily, but there was no trouncing through mud and getting stuck and feeling. I wasn't feeling as if I just want to go back to the campsite. I'd rather be sat at the camp and drinking instead of enjoying the Village. We could walk around quite happily and not worry about getting stuck in the mud.
Yeah, definitely. And I can't speak for anybody in any of the other campsites, but it was very conveniently placed for us to get to. It didn't take long for us to get to at all.
So I went and met Dave, who was in Purple Camp.
Yeah.
And I mean, it felt like a long walk, and I just walked from RIP and the other side of the Village way all the way down. But it was less than a 5-minute walk from one corner of Purple Camp all the way up past the track into the Village. It wasn't that long of a walk at all.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't speak for anybody that was in Blue Camp or Black Camp. But we managed to walk to the edge of the Village and then obviously to the doghouse, sorry. Didn't feel far. Even if it was a little bit uphill, didn't feel far at all.
Because they were making some pretty wild claims about how close it was to all the campsites, weren't they?
They were. And I think we did discuss whether that was with no camping, no stuff on their backs. They're probably doing it at pace as well to try and make it seem it was shorter.
Sprinting. I did it in 3 minutes, look, I did it in 3 minutes.
Well, there you go. No, I thought it was very well placed. I think they could have done better with the some of the stalls and the shops, the co-op especially, being a bit more closer to the Village. But at the same time, no, I had no real massive complaints, especially from where we were camping.
Yeah. So it's fairly central to most of the campsites. You know, you can't please everybody, can you? There's always somebody who's going to find it a long way. But yeah, it's. I mean, just getting onto it, with it being on tarmac, it eliminates that worry of, well, if it does rain, I might as well not bother. Like 2019, you know, it was a mud bath. It was a complete washout, and none of us went to. Well, I mean, a handful of us went to the Village, I think, because a lot of the traders who were there that year have not returned. Just to fill you in a little bit on that, the reason for there being fewer market stalls and traders in 2022 as opposed to last time is because of the weather, basically, in the placement of 2019. They were unhappy. I think, you know, if you were a trader in 2019, you would be legitimately unhappy about your sales that weekend because nobody went, because it was in a pretty poor position, which, you know, debatable as to who you want to blame or whatever. You know, if it had been a nice sunny weekend, maybe there wouldn't have been the trouble, but it is, so it was.
And so that's unfortunate because, I mean, it is easy to blame the weather. Why again some of the traders obviously didn't get the trade that they were expecting, but at the same time they can't put all the blame onto the organisers, considering the fact they can't control the weather.
Yeah, I did hear on the grapevine that whoever deals with that sort of side of things, they take no shit. So if you have a go at them, then you're not coming back next year. It's as simple as that. And so that might be why there was fewer people trading this year.
Maybe.
Complete speculation, but who knows really? I'm not pointing the finger at anybody in particular. But traders talk, especially when they're unhappy.
It is also, I think it is also common knowledge that Download charge quite a bit to allow traders to come onto site and trade.
Really?
So maybe that could be another reason why as well. Yeah, they've got to pay for the privilege of being able to trade at Download.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I imagine they pay Download, and whatever money they make is for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So a bit of an interesting drama behind the scenes, perhaps, but we'll never really know. Again, complete speculation. But in terms of what you would normally find in the village for entertainment, it is now the Crucible, which is the name for an area made out of shipping containers to create two stages, which are the doghouse stage and the side splitter stage, which would normally, as we would have had in history, be in tents. But no, they were completely surrounded, like it's sort of walls built out of containers. Quite small stages, actually. Quite small stages.
Yeah, maybe they looked a bit smaller, being sort of open air. But I imagine the setup of the stage is probably roughly the same as it would be if it was inside the tent. Mention the shipping containers again. I loved it. I thought the aesthetic of it was absolutely on point. And I really enjoyed it. I think I managed to get like a video or again almost like a panoramic shot of between two stages up by the above the bar, and I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a good move doing that.
It's given it quite an industrial type of feel, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think with the sort of the music that comes to Download, I think that fits in really well. My only negative comment about it would be, what if it had pissed down with rain? There was no cover.
Yeah.
Maybe they had planned for that. Maybe they had, or maybe thought, right, well, the weather is definitely saying it's not going to rain, or it's not going to rain heavy at all. I mean, we got a couple of spits and dribbles, but...
and then it rained.
But, I mean, 99% of the time, it was dry.
It was, yeah.
throughout the full 5 days.
Yeah, it didn't get going, did it?
We were lucky. But what if it had rained?
Yeah.
You'd have had a lot, and I mean a lot of unhappy customers that probably would have left quite quickly.
Well, you've got to, yeah. I mean, on the plus side, if it did rain, you wouldn't have had any mud, which is nice. But at the same time, it would have been raining, and people are going to be looking for cover. And so where do you go? There's nowhere. In a regular, or in Downloads past, you've got big tents, big tops, where you can go underneath and shelter for a few minutes while the rain passes. But there was really nothing. I can't think of anything. There was really nothing, was there? I can't think of anything.
Even in the arena, unless you were in the guest area, because there's a little bit of cover in the guest area. If in the arena, there was nothing.
So that's something that could improve.
Which was a massive gamble.
Yeah.
It paid off this year. Will it pay off next year? Download Festival 20th year anniversary. It probably is going to rain.
I think they were really, I think they were really lucky with the weather this year. Really lucky, because it was glorious every day. I mean, if you had come to download without any, what are they called, antihistamines, the stuff for your hay fever, there were people with faces red as anything because you rub your eyes and all of that stuff, and that was unpleasant, because again, like I'd said in previous podcasts, you're not expecting how much pollen there is in, if you live in a city and you're not used to the amount of pollen there is in the countryside. I mean, it might have been the Wednesday, the Thursday. My eyes were streaming every day, and I was taking 5 or 6 hay fever tablets. They were doing nothing.
Fucking hell. You're only meant to take one a day, right?
Yeah, I know. That's how desperate I was. Yeah, so I don't know what I'm going to do next time, because I've clearly got an issue there. Anyway, so the fairground was huge. There were a lot more fairground rides than there usually are. Different ones that I've actually never seen before as well. So that's interesting. Silcox were there. Silcox are there every year with their fairground rides.
You've got to get a picture with your head in front of the sill, and it says Cox. It's just it's obligatory. Yes. That was the word of the week, wasn't it? Obliged, obligated. That was the word of the week.
Yes, it was. There wasn't a wall of death though, which, if you're not familiar with the wall of death, is a sort of circular effort where a motorcyclist will ride around literally on the walls of the thing. Not that I've never seen it before. I saw it millions of times as a kid, but it wasn't there this year. Then there was the co-op, which we all love in the village. I don't think anyone's got any bad words about the co-op, have they?
No, I mean, I think people are expecting the prices to be what the prices are, so people don't really complain about that.
And it's not bad. It's like
no, I know your meal deal, your sandwich, your snacking, your drinks, $4.50.
Yeah,
I mean that could set you up for the day at least.
What would you say as a vegan going in the co-op? I think you had some words about the amount of plastic they were using.
So yeah, I mean, from an environmental standpoint, there was a lot of plastic and a lot of fruit wrapped in plastic, which bothers me in every supermarket. But I mean, it is what it is.
That's just supermarkets, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And
but there was a good selection. They had a lot to choose on. I think I reckon it must be the biggest, most well-stocked co-op at Download that I've ever seen.
They did really well. I mean, it was busy. It was always busy. From the minute they opened on the Wednesday till the Sunday, if I remember correctly, it was just busy all the time. And even at night, or at least during the whole day, they've got DJs in there. So everyone's fucking buzzing inside a co-op. I mean, could you imagine having a DJ in like your co-op on the corner?
Well, that'd be a reason to go in, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
But I never actually saw it close. Was it open the whole time?
I think it was. I think it shut at 3:00.
Okay, hell.
1 o'clock or 3 o'clock. But it was very rare that it was closed because people were going in to buy the beers because they sold slabs of beer, boxes of wine,
right?
Your snacks, your sweets.
They even had champagne in there.
They did, yeah. Obviously, and all your toiletries as well. Obviously, if you've got caught short one way or another.
Like literally anything that you wanted, you could get. Not literally anything. That's a stupid thing to say. But anything that you would reasonably need, they had. And
it's why we've touched on the subject a couple of times. You could go to Download with fuck all and buy it there.
Yeah.
If you were that way inclined, you could.
Just opposite was Fat Frank's, of course. Always a place to get your tent from, or your chairs, or literally anything. They were there, and they had, I think, a few neighbours who were also selling camping stuff, and Oxfam was there as usual, and who else was in the village there? There wasn't that much to choose from, were they? And they were quite spread out.
Yeah, there was like a big walkway with nothing in it at all before you got to the co-op and Fat Franks and that. Like, I mean, I imagine there was definitely a legitimate reason for it, but it seems if they were quite far away from the main village. Fuck knows why. Whatever reason, it was obviously a legitimate and needed reason.
I feel like you could fit 2018's village and number of market stalls on the Tarmac Lake quite easily. With the number of traders on that Tarmac Lake would fill it up, I think. I just think it was the fewer people there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I can't fault it.
No.
Apart from the cover, I couldn't fault it. I thought it was very well done, very well laid out. The amount of fairground rides they had, which we never go on. I always say when I go, oh yeah, I might give it a go this time, and never do.
No, well, I was looking at some of them, and they were quite big rides. Some of them, I'm past that now. I think, especially having worked in a theme park, I'm just a bit past it. I'm just past it. I'm past it. There you go.
You just passed it now. Fucking everything in life, and just passed it.
Yeah, I've given up on everything. So yeah, it just doesn't really appeal to me, to be honest. I mean, if I'd had more drinks, then possibly you could have got me on some of those
I
things.
think it's probably the worst thing to go on, especially the waltzers. Fucking hell. Could you imagine me spun around like against your will on a waltzer while you've had you sunk like 20 cans?
You would have looked like a sprinkler as you went round.
Yeah.
That's a bottom quote.
I was about to say the same thing then.
It was really actually very attractive. Rick Mail there.
Going off on a tangent, I love one of the stand-up with I think it's on the second live one they do. He can't get the fucking door to shut and he's slamming it. He's pointing at it like, you listen here, buddy. I'm Rick fucking Mail.
Close.
It gets me every time.
Oh, it's full of. It's if you've not watched Bottom Live on YouTube, then you're missing a trick. There wasn't a massive amount of food to choose from, was there? We found. In fact, you had some noodles, didn't you?
I did. I panicked actually, like the day after. So Chinese noodles or Asian noodles are generally egg noodles. And in the drunken stupor that I was in, did not think about this. And I went fucking full blown, right, veggie noodles, couple of spring rolls, bosh. Happy days, that's dinner.
Bosh.
Woke up next day and was, oh fuck, they were egg noodles.
What made you think of them?
I don't know. I think we was having a conversation about veganism at campsite, and it made me like, oh shit, I had egg noodles last night. Yeah. But whilst we were in the arena, I went to the same noodle place that was in the arena that was in the village, and it said all noodles are rice noodles. So I was like, yes.
Oh, because I was going to mention, didn't you have noodles at the Pilot as well? But they must have been okay.
I had noodles at the Pilot. I can't remember what I ate at the Pilot.
Oh God,
I remember I had the Big Mac that was all down my front.
Yeah.
The burrito.
Because I remember there's a shot of you walking away from a noodles place or something.
Are you sure that's not the burritos?
I don't fucking know. It's a long time ago.
Pizza. I remember eating pizza, burrito, and that Big Mac. That's about it.
But in terms of things to choose from, it wasn't as varied as the main arena was. There was tons in the arena to choose from, the usual stuff. But in the village, it was a little bit more sort of... I was expecting to see more, actually, than there actually was. There wasn't that much, was there?
No, and I mean... I can't think of an explanation for it. There just was...
There was no easy cheesy...
which is always a good thing. No, there just wasn't. I mean, there was plenty to choose from, but there wasn't as much as maybe we're used to.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because they seemed to pack out the village with the fairground rides.
Yeah, they did. There were a lot. Half of it was like fairground rides.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, there was no cinema this time around, despite the every effort going into trying to make it happen. It didn't happen because of logistical reasons, because of concrete things that they couldn't get or whatever. But they fully intended to do it. I have read actually that the Crucible where the stages were, it was quite close to Quiet Camp.
I knew this would come up. I mean, you looked at the map.
In fact, you said this, didn't you?
Yeah, you look at the map before the festival had happened, and you thought, is that really smart putting the village right next or right in front of the quiet camping area? It's not going to be quiet at all. I think maybe whether the quiet camp means there's a curfew on it, so everyone in that campsite needs to be quiet from like 11 or 12 o'clock, or it generally meant, no, you won't hear anything outside the campsite, which wasn't the case.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? What's the definition of quiet camp? Yeah.
Again, that'll be something that they will think about and they will correct next year.
I mean, when you think about it, quiet camp means people aren't going to be partying until 3 o'clock in the morning, doesn't it? If that's what you think of people
that's
like in Blue
that's
Camp.
one interpretation of it, yeah. But then at the same time, from doing Bloodstock and being in Bloodstock, the first time I did Bloodstock, we went into the quiet camping area, and we were not only were we away from the rabble of the party camp, we were away from all the noise from the main arena. So yeah, so it's like, you're right. What is the true definition for quiet camp? Is it curfew, so it's quieter in the evenings from campers, or is it a quiet and far away from any sort of noise like the village?
Yeah, it's. I do think it is a festival, so you're not going to have absolute quiet, but at the same time, sticking it next to the Crucible is a bit of a piss take, I think. If I was camping next to the Crucible, which was going on until 3 o'clock in the morning with loud music, I think I'd be a bit pissed off as well. If you'd bought a ticket that says Quiet Camp on it, then I can understand why people are pissed off. Definitely. I mean, I'm laughing, and I should have more sympathy with the people who had to try and sleep next to the Crucible. Oh my God, can you imagine?
Well, apparently there were complaints from RIP campers that apparently the co-op DJ went until 3 a.m, and the corner of one of the RIP fields was almost right next to the co-op.
I mean,
there was a lot of complaints from noise from there as well.
Was it the co-op or was it the Crucible? I reckon it was more likely to be the Crucible, because is the co-op going to be louder than the Crucible?
Where RIP is, I'd imagine it was more co-op than the Crucible, because obviously the distance between them.
I didn't even think the co-op was that loud.
No, but obviously when we weren't really in that part of RIP, and
no,
we wouldn't have known what co-op was like at 3 a.m.
I reckon that was the Crucible, because for the Crucibles, they're not. I think that was the Crucible. I don't think it was the co-op myself. Because that seems bizarre that the co-op is having a fucking banging night, and then you've got the Crucible over there a bit quieter. I just think that's the wrong way around.
I can imagine that co-op and the DJ and the co-op going fucking nuts quite late and quite early in the morning.
Really? Like a stage?
Honestly, I really can see it, because the RIP was so close to it.
Okay. Well, who knows? We'll never know now, really. So with it's hard to go over the new village without talking about all the changes and our opinions about whether they were good or bad. There's a lot to digest with all the changes there, but I think we've managed to cover it all. There isn't that much substance. I mean, because I guess there wasn't that much there. I feel like it was a more empty village than we're used to. So we're mainly talking about the changes. But it was still, it was still a place to go and get pissed. There was places to sit down. There was places to enjoy yourself. You'd got the welfare tent in there, which we discovered. We.
Yeah, thank you to whomever the doctor was or the nurse was that decided to patch up my face. I very much appreciate that.
There was plenty of toilets actually there, and they didn't. I mean, I barely used them, to be honest, but they didn't look shitty. They looked quite all right to me.
Yeah, I think the ones that I used when I needed to use them weren't as bad as I've seen in the past.
Yeah, oh yeah, by a long stretch, and it was quite civilized and nice, really. You didn't really see many people lolling about in being absolutely pissed out their face. It was quite civilized and nice. Trying to think if there's anything else that really stuck out to me, but I can't really. We had a good time. You had your face smashed in.
Worth it.
Yeah, you were happy, weren't you? You loved it.
Yeah. Because I was just happy to get back into the mosh pit for Red Method. Because again, I was at the barrier for Red Method as I was for Borders.
Yeah,
and they were fucking fantastic.
I mean, yeah. To be fair, they were brilliant. A great lineup of bands on the Bawdy Takeover, and the crowd was loving it. In fact, the one thing I do want to talk about, which before I forget, is the fact that they did podcasts on the Doghouse stage, which we watched and sort of tried to analyse, obviously with a keen eye on what we would do differently or what we liked. And I don't think it really worked because there wasn't much of an audience for it, to be honest. When you compare it to the bands who were on, there was always a massive audience for bands playing with loud music and moshing. But for podcasts, they sort of drifted away. I think, I mean, the acoustics didn't help. You couldn't really hear what they were saying, which is a shame. And there wasn't much of a show to it. Essentially, they were all sat down in front of a desk, chatting to each other, with no sort of special flashbang wallop. It's not like watching a band. It's not like watching a band where you've got entertainment. They were all just sat there, just sort of going on to each other. And it wasn't very interesting, to be honest.
I mean, I on paper, I thought the idea was very intriguing. But yeah, like you said, it was very hard to hear because everybody else was talking around them. Like, the volume wasn't turned up that well because I think they found out quite quickly that with the volume up as loud as it could have gone, it would have reverberated off of the containers, making the sound worse.
Yeah. And it felt like a break between music because when they were on, we were all just talking to each other. Whereas when the band is on, everyone's watching the band. And so it didn't get the attention that I think they predicted.
Yeah, I mean, it was the podcasts are brilliant. The We Wear Black ladies and the Sapling podcast, they are popular for a reason. They are good podcasts. But maybe the idea of having podcasts at a festival in that sort of environment, personally, I don't think it worked as, like you said, I don't think it worked as well as they had thought it was going to. This isn't Sour Grapes before anybody likes to pipe up that we didn't get chosen to do it. It's not Sour Grapes at all. I think we would have done things differently if ever asked, but at the same time, I don't know about you, Neil, I probably would have said might pass on it and maybe another opportunity for something else could come up because
we were curious actually. We wanted to see what they were doing, but it wasn't. It's not the kind of thing. It's not appointment entertainment. You're not going to go, oh well, I like that podcast, so I'm definitely going to go and watch that. Because the thing is, it's not very entertaining to see people sat at a desk chatting. If you go up to a stage, you want to see some live entertainment. And the fact is that people sat around a desk chatting it's not that entertaining, no matter how much you like the podcast. If they change, what you need to do for a podcast to work on a stage is do a stage show, not a podcast. I mean, fair enough if you record it and put it out as a podcast, but if you go up on stage and just talk to each other in very normal voices like this, it's, you know what I mean? It's not what you're at Download for.
So I'm just thinking in my head, like, what sort of things would we do if we ever got on a stage to do it?
Well, you've got to change the whole thing. You can't just have two of us sat here like this.
No, and that's the thing. That's what I'm thinking. Like, you wouldn't. Like, I don't think I'd want to be stood up doing it at all. I think I'd want to be walking around the stage and being loud and again having some like sort of interaction with the crowd, whether it be like them asking questions or us. Like, I mean, something just popped into my head. Obviously, with the sun being out as much as it was, like you shout out who's got sunscreen if you have it, and then you chuck out like little baby bottles of sunscreen at people. Like, just a bit of, I don't know. It's just that's like the first thing that popped into my head. Like
you've got to put a show on.
Yeah, like I mean, obviously watching Bottom live before going to Download, I had loads of ideas. Like, we could just they were just. Again, doing like a live show, two people on stage being daft and actually sitting down behind a desk, not quite the entertainment that maybe they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it wasn't really well thought through, I don't think, which is a shame because obviously we've an interest in podcasts being popular and well thought of, and so it's a shame that more wasn't sort of made of it. But I think if you're doing a podcast like this and you're suddenly asked to put it on stage, then you're going to think, oh, well, we've been asked to do that because of what we do here, so let's just do that on stage. And it doesn't work like that. You've got to be entertaining. You've got to make an impression on the audience. You've got to get their attention. You've got to be interesting rather than just sat there with doing your usual shtick. It's got to be something different. That's my 2 pence, and that's why I won't be watching it again. But otherwise, The Village, I approve of.
Yeah, if I had to rate The Village, it'd get a strong 8 out of 10 for me.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. So get in touch with us about your thoughts on The Village. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? We are all over the socials. Just search for FestPod. If you have a comment on YouTube, just give us a comment and underneath there, just underneath the video there, and tell us what you think. I'm still having to try and get used to us being on YouTube. It's a bit weird that a podcast is on YouTube, but this is what's happening now. This is what, the direction everybody's going in, so we have to be there too.
I also thought, actually, the videos that we did, I thought worked quite well. Yes, obviously we were in company of each other, and obviously we were able to see each other, but I thought videos worked quite well, and it'd be nice maybe one day if we could go in that direction.
Yes, well, who knows?
Exactly.
Who knows? I'm skint at the moment, so save up for a camera.